freaking love Howard the Duck. So, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the sequel to 2014's The Guardians of the Galaxy, and is also written and directed by James Gunn, and also stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel, and now introducing Kurt Russell. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 picks up just a few months after the end of the first Guardians of the Galaxy. It first shows our crew going through doing these jobs, and they're hired to fight this big monster that was seen in the trailer. That's like the opening scene, which I thought was really cool. And then from there, like within 10 minutes, I think, of the movie starting, you meet Kurt Russell's character, and from there things happen, and that's your story. I don't want to get too much into that, because I don't want to get into spoilers in this video. I'm going to say now, after watching this movie, I wasn't exactly too sure how I felt, because I laughed, I was super fun and excited and totally into a lot of the action scenes, and I loved all the character development, that was great, but there were some things in the movie that just didn't click for me, so I was kind of here on this movie. But I think first we should talk about the things I really liked about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So let's dive right into this. James Gunn, as a director and writer, is really great. I love the way that he can listen to the feedback from his fans and take everything they say into consideration and actually use it going forward. After we saw the Guardians of the Galaxy back in 2014, we threw these things out, we threw those things out, we talked about it, and he heard everything we had to say, and he took all of that going forward into this film, and he made it better. He threw in Easter eggs for the hardcore fans, he threw in characters, he threw in tons of stuff just because he knew that's what the fans wanted to see. It's so great when a writer and a director has that kind of connection with his fans and is willing to do that, and I really appreciate James Gunn for doing that. Now, my favorite part about this movie is the characters, as it should be, because to me and to a lot of people from what I'm hearing, this is a character-driven story. There's not a strong, overlong story here that all the characters have to go through. It's a movie that takes characters and develops them and fleshes them out, and it's really fun to watch, because getting to learn about Star-Lord and Ego and everything with them, that's really cool. Star-Lord is definitely the lead in this one, but the movie gives the spotlight to everybody, and that's really great. Drax is hilarious with all his one-liners. They introduce Mantis, who has a lot of scenes with Drax and a bunch of other people. Mantis is really great in this movie. Gamora and Nebula, they go into more backstory on them. That's really cool. Nebula is still not my favorite character, but she was done much better in this one than the last one. That's really cool to see them building that relationship up, and I hope to see them pop up again in Infinity War. My favorite duo was Rocket and Yondu. Yondu was actually probably my favorite character, believe it or not. I didn't actually love him that much in the first one, but in this one they were able to go into so much more depth with his character, and his backstory was great. The way they took his character and just made it something so different than what I expected they were going to do was amazing. I love the way that James Gunn wrote these characters and gave them all these great arcs. This is why I love this movie so much. Of course, there was also Baby Groot. Baby Groot doesn't do too much in this movie, but he does the perfect amount for Baby Groot to do. He shows up, he does the funny, cute little scenes. He's great. There's no complaints with Baby Groot. We got the perfect amount of Baby Groot, and I'm satisfied with my Baby Groot. Overall, the characters in this movie were great, and I have no complaints to them at all. Now, the things I do have some issues with, where the story, the gold guys you see in the trailer, which I can't think of their names right now, but that's not important, and some of the pacing of the movie. So, as I said a few times already, the story in this movie is not strong. It's a movie that is based and revolves around the characters, but there isn't a real story for the characters to follow until probably halfway, if not later, into the movie. It's a lot of events and scenes and things happening to the characters, but there's no overlong story that goes throughout the entire thing that you can follow from point A to point B to point C to point D. There is no story like that in this, and because of that, I felt like the movie dragged a little bit. Certain scenes went on longer than they needed to, and it just kind of took me out a little bit. I like a story that I can follow from point A to point B and be done with it. I want to be able to follow characters through their story arc in one whole, not necessarily the way that they did in this movie. That kind of took me out a little bit. The gold people that you see in the trailer briefly don't have a huge role in this movie, which is good. They show up in a scene. Their scene that they're in, like the first scene they're in, okay, without getting into spoilers, the first scene they're in is really good. I have no problems with it. I think it's fun, creative, clever, looks great. The problem I have with them is their characters aren't likable enough to keep showing up the way they do. They show up over and over and over again within this movie for no real good reason, and it feels like, as a member of the audience, that they're only showing up to kind of move the movie on. Anytime the Guardians are in a scene or a setting for too long and it seems like they don't know how to get them to the next scene, the gold people show up again and therefore they need to move to the next scene. It feels like a lazy way of moving the story along, and this is my issue with the pacing as well. The pacing wasn't great because of that reason. So I guess overall, my issues with this movie are the story doesn't feel whole, the gold people feel like a lazy way to move on the unwhole story, and because of this, the pacing is slightly off. I really like the movie for the characters, the humor, and everything like that. I did not like it for the story and stuff like that. Even though the end result of the story was pretty good, it just struggled to find it for part of the movie. I like the humor. A lot of the humor was great. Some of it was a hit and miss, but for the most part, it was pretty funny. Again, the visuals with these movies are stunning. There's just so much about these movies that is so fun to watch, and I wish, the story could have been a bit better, but overall, I don't have that many complaints about this movie. It was still a fun, compelling movie to watch. I had a great time in the theater with all my friends, sitting back and watching another Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and I cannot wait for Infinity War, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and everything else that's upcoming. Overall, I think I'll give this movie a 7.8 out of 10, and I recommend anybody who's a fan of Marvel, who wants to see great characters develop after the first movie, and wants to see a great space opera, go check this movie out. You'll have fun, trust me. Until next time, be sure to like this video, comment on this video, subscribe to this channel, and check out all my other reviews. Until next time, I am Groot.